Are you one of the 75% of contractors whose financial statements are inaccurate? Find out. Click on the link in the show notes and you'll get a free P&L and balance sheet check.
This is Contractor Sense with Ruth King.
Welcome to Contractor Sense. Here you discover ideas, tactics, news, and information that matters to your contracting business and you. I'm your host, Ruth King. This episode is sponsored by Financially Fit Business. Get the business tool that helps you grow profitably, build wealth, and significantly impact your life and the lives of your employees. Go to www.financiallyfit.business and get started today. Thank you for joining us. Here's how we will help your business and you. What would it take to rocket your profits? What is the biggest goal you can think of that you'd like to achieve? I'll give you the story of moonshots and 8 baseline questions that you need to answer to achieve the life of your dreams. Let's get started. So, the moonshot actually started because of John Kennedy. If you're like me, you really don't want your business to crash and burn, like the early rocket experiments. Think about them. They all crashed. Scientists eventually got them all right. They learned from their mistakes, and now rockets quickly get to their destinations most of the time. If they're destroyed, scientists figure out what happened and make sure it doesn't happen again. The same is true for your profits. Analyze them and determine what happened and learn from those mistakes so that you don't make them again. The rocket profits first step answers where do you want to go? And more importantly, the corollary, why. John F. Kennedy, in his speech to Congress on May 25, 1961, asked for funding for the first moonshot. He proposed that the U.S. should commit itself to landing a man on the moon and returning him safely to Earth by the end of the decade. It was an out-of-the-box, almost science fiction goal. Think about it. Microprocessors had not yet been invented. So, the corollary is even more important. Why? So, after he had that speech on May 25th, he followed it up on September 12th, 1962. He said, "We choose to go to the moon. We choose to go to the moon in this decade and do the other things, not because they are easy, but because they are hard, because that goal will serve to organize and measure the best of our energies and skills, because that challenge is one that we are willing to accept, one we are willing to postpone, one that we are unwilling to postpone, and one which we intend to win, and the others too." Now, here's the real why behind the why. The United States was in the Cold War with the Russians, and he really wanted to rally the country around an audacious goal, the moonshot, which today has come to mean any goal that is 10x rather than 10%. So, how does this relate to your business? A couple questions before I get into the 8 baseline questions. Where do you want to take your business? And more importantly, why? It's great to set a goal, but if you don't know why you're setting that goal, the likelihood of you achieving it is probably slim and none. What can you 10x? Can you exponentially increase the number of maintenance customers each year? Can you 10x the number of customers you profitably serve? What would your business look like if that actually happened to you? Be an interesting thing. If you have 100 customers, 10 times it is 1,000 customers. 10 times that is 10,000 customers. The numbers get really, really, really busy, really, really big pretty quickly. So the question is, what can you 10x? Okay, maybe you can't 10x them, but you could 5x them. And think about, number one, the reason why you want to do it. But more importantly, you can do it if you put your head to it. It's only crazy if you think you can't do it. And everybody around you will tell you it's crazy until you actually do it and figure out how to do it. So with that thinking, and if you're driving in your truck thinking about, gee, what would be really fun to do? What would my business look like if we had 10 times the number of maintenance customers that we have now? What would my business look like if we had 10 times the profits we have now? Interesting questions to answer. What would you do? Sometimes, when I work with businesses and they're growing, and they decide they've had enough, and they want to sell their businesses. Unless you have something else to do when your business is sold, you will be very, very, very unhappy after you sell your business. The money's great, but if you don't have someplace to go or something to do, or life becomes very boring, you're going to be miserable. Figure out what you want to do if you decide to sell it, or if you decide you're going to 10x the profits or your maintenance customers. All right. So before the break, I'm going to give you a few of the questions that you need to answer to rocket your profits. So here's the first one. How productive are you? For every dollar you take in the door, how much do you spend on payroll and payroll taxes? This ratio includes all payroll, field, office, officers. I don't want you to include any benefits in this calculation. Just payroll, taxes, FICA, Medicare, and unemployment. This percentage can be departmentalized and should be under 40%. For new construction, this ratio should be under 20%. If you're just starting your business and you've got 1 or 2 employees, it's probably going to be around 60%. A little high, but you can get it down as you add the number of employees and as you get more and more work in the door. The interesting thing about this ratio is once you look at it, and once you look at your billable hours ratio on top of this, and look at it from a perspective of, if I pay a guy for 40 hours, how much of his time is billable for field employees? And if I pay an office person for 40 hours, is that person productive for 40 hours? Interesting questions to answer. A lot of times when I'm looking at financial statements, I look at them and the profitability is not there. It's not because of pricing. It's because of productivity. I mean, think about it. If you pay a guy or a girl 8 hours and they're only productive for 4 of those 8 hours, you're going to lose your butt. I mean, the productivity, sometimes that's the way to solve the issue. It's not pricing. It's actually productivity. Now, in some cases, it actually is pricing, but you have to look at both, and you'd be surprised how many times it's not pricing, but it is productivity. So figure out for every dollar you take in the door, how much you're spending on payroll and payroll taxes. If you're spending more than 40%, i.e. 40 cents for every dollar, take a really good look at what you're doing. Even if you're smaller and you're up at the 50 or 60%, try to figure out how productive you can get with the customer base so that you can start dropping this number. When we get back from break, I'll give you the other 7. Thanks for listening to Contractor Sense. We'll be right back.
Imagine you had total freedom. You didn't have to worry about money. You didn't have to be a slave to your business. The words, "I can't," are eliminated from your vocabulary. What if you could do what you want to do, whenever you want to do it? A financially fit business could give you that freedom. How? By knowing what your financial statements are telling you and taking action based on what they say. You can do this in less than 10 minutes a month, at an investment of less than taking your family out to dinner once a month. And if your financial statements are a mess, you can get help. Go to www.financiallyfit.business or click on the QR code below to get started today.
We're back. Thanks for listening to Contractor Sense. Before the break, I gave you the reason that we're calling things moonshot and JFK's reason for wanting to go to the moon. It was the reason behind the reason. That doesn't get out very often, but it was the real reason that he tried to rally the U.S. is because of the Cold War with Russia. Interesting. So I gave you the first baseline question you need to answer. What is your productivity? For every dollar you take in the door, how much do you spend on payroll and payroll taxes? Number 2 is my favorite question. It's what is your net profit per hour? So for every billable hour, how much profit do you generate? All right. So determine the 2024 total billable or revenue producing hours. Don't include vacations, holidays, meeting time, training time, or unapplied hours. Then take your net operating profit and divide it by your billable hours. This is your 2024 net profit per hour. If you don't like the number, your first goal is to increase it to a net profit per hour you're comfortable with. Can you 10x the net profit per hour? Up to a point, yes. Otherwise, after a while, you're going to get too expensive. And at least from my perspective, I mean, if you start at $10 net profit per hour, 10 times that is $100 net profit per hour, which is still reasonable and low in some situations. If you go from 100 to 1,000, not likely. In all the years I've been doing this, I've only known one contractor to do $1,000 net profit per hour. He was geothermal for a very, very selective group of clients who were very high net worth individuals. Most of us don't have that opportunity. All right, so that's number 2. What is your net profit per hour? Number 3, what is your overhead cost per hour? Again, for every billable hour, remember we generate revenue through billable hours. How much overhead is there? Again, to determine this number, look at last year's overhead that you have on your P&L and take your revenue producing hours that you calculated for the net profit per hour. All right, so the question I get all the time is, what should it be? My answer always is as low as possible. The largest companies' overhead costs per hour are somewhat under $25 an hour, and a lot of the really biggest ones are under $20 an hour. Smaller companies, it should be probably under $40 an hour for service, under $30 an hour for replacement, and under $20 for new construction. But think about it. You're this really, really big contractor, and your overhead cost per hour is $20 an hour, and you're competing, or the little contractors are trying to compete with you, and their overhead cost per hour is $40 an hour. You have a $20 an hour advantage over the smaller contractors because your overhead cost per hour is $20 per hour less. So on an 8-hour job, your overhead cost is $160, which is 20 times 8. And the little contractors' overhead cost per hour is $320, which is $40 an hour times, $320 an hour. Yeah, $40 an hour times 8. So yours is so much cheaper, so you can charge less if you want, or you can make that much more profit as the larger contractor. This is why smaller contractors don't have to make as much money, or generally don't make as much money, is probably what I should say, as larger contractors do, because their overhead costs per hour are so much higher. All right, number 4, what is your average service ticket revenue and average job revenue? Figure it out. You did X number of service tickets, and this was the service revenue that you had. Divide the 2. Are you happy with it or not? Average job revenue, how many jobs did you do? And divide by what the total revenue was. Okay. Most contractors know average job revenue, more so than they owe average service ticket revenue for whatever reason. You need to know both. And I'll give you an interesting thing. We had one of my clients one time, we had to get their service ticket revenue up. And so we created the 4x4x4 plan. They had 4 techs. They had to raise their average service ticket to $400. If they did that for 4 days, they split $400. And they all had to do it. So there was peer pressure to get the service ticket revenue up. 4 guys, average service ticket of $400. Every 4 days, they split $400. The owner of the company literally went around and handed each one of them a $100 bill every 4 days on that 5th day, assuming that they had made their numbers. You think the service ticket revenue got up to $400? Yeah, got over it, believe it or not. And it was an interesting way to prove to them that they could do it. And they kept this going for a really long time. And then he ended up just adding it to their hourly rate rather than giving them the bonuses that way. So you can do it. Number 5, what is your maintenance plan enrollment percentage? So for example, for every opportunity you have to talk to a customer about your maintenance program, how many actually enroll? Easy. The national average is about 30% for residential maintenance. And I did those numbers and I did that research, so I know the number. For commercial maintenance, the national average is enrolling one new maintenance plan for every 2 surveys that you perform. So think about it. Even, from a residential perspective, there'll be 2 no's for every yes. And it's not to get really depressed over. You're still going to get more no's than yeses. And you're going to get about equal no's and yeses from the commercial perspective. Number 6, what is your maintenance plan renewal rate? This is just as important as your enrollment rate, if not more important. The last thing that you want to do is enroll 100 new maintenance customers and lose 30 of them. That's crazy. You have to get those 30 back before you even get ahead for the following year. This number should be greater than 90% for commercial maintenance clients and actually 90% for residential. My best renewing client had a renewal rate of 96%. My joke was the only ones who didn't renew died or moved. And it was pretty close. I mean, it was very rare that they lost a maintenance client. But they lived, ate, and breathed maintenance all the time. Number 7, what is your replacement sales closing ratio? And it should be different for maintenance clients and non-maintenance clients. Maintenance customer closing ratio should be 80% or higher. Non-maintenance closing percentage should be higher than 40%. And the last thing I'd love for you to do is to job cost a minimum of 20 jobs chosen at random. What was the net profit per hour for each of these jobs? You don't like the number? It's time to either increase productivity or figure out what's going on to make sure that the hours come in at the hours that you want them to come in. So here are the 8 again. Let me find it. All right. Number 1, what is your productivity ratio? For every dollar you take in the door, how much do you spend on payroll and payroll taxes? Number 2, what is your net profit per hour? Number 3, what is your overhead cost per hour? Number 4, what is your average service ticket revenue and average job revenue? Number 5, what is your maintenance plan enrollment percentage? Number 6, what is your maintenance plan renewal rate? 7, what is your replacement sales closing ratio? And number 8, job cost, a minimum of 20 jobs chosen at random. What was the net profit per hour for each of these jobs? Knowing these baselines will actually allow you and help you decide what your moonshot's going to be. What do you want to 10x? What can you 10x? You probably have to fix a few things before you get into the 10xing, but figure out what you can 10x and ask your employees. We'll talk about that on the next Contractor Sense. So thank you for joining us. Choose one thing that you discovered and implement it in your business. These ideas, tactics, and strategies help you make more money, have more free time, and give back. If you like today's program, spread the word. Please review this podcast on any device you're listening to it on. Help a fellow contractor make more money too. For comments or questions, call me at 770-729-0258 or email Ruth King at hvacchannel.tv. Thanks for listening. Have a great and profitable day.